And we're going to give the baton now, to pass the baton to Johann, who is going to tell us about, and let me just quickly go to that slide, about feature adoption tracking in Salesforce. It's on to you, Johann.
Hard part unmute. Hey, thank you very much for having me. I'm so honored to be in the, say honestly, the famous Amsterdam user group. I'm so happy that you got, what, 30 something people together. I see 32 participants. Amazing job. And I'm happy that I can talk about a topic which is very close to my heart. It's about what are my users actually doing. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning about performance, that I value performance a lot in the Salesforce world, and I also value cleanliness. Maybe it comes because my background is I was working for an end customer for 4.5 years. And when you sit right next to the user for 4.5 years, to the same user, you actually value them a lot. You value their time, you value their frustration. I think it's different than my time as a consultant, where let's say a green checkbox behind a project plan was more important than the user. The 4.5 years sitting right next to the users, and I enjoyed the time on the sales floor a lot. It's a great feeling to be part of a sales team. And what I learned there is the good and the bad. But before we start into details, I'm Johann, I'm from Berlin, I'm a Salesforce nerd currently. Currently, I'm not working. I took a sabbatical. I think it was kind of the worst possible timing, but you know, you never know it ahead of times. The plan was to do a lot of vacation, but nevertheless. I like to do trainings and certifications and trailhead badges. I'm a dev by curiosity, so I can program a little bit, but an admin by heart. Don't trust me to program, please. I will offer it, don't take my code, never. And can this be removed? Was my catchphrase, is my catchphrase. I like to keep my system clean. And today I want to talk about what feature adoption tracking. I mean, I want to explain a little bit what we actually can track and should track, how we should implement it. The hard part, live demo. Fingers crossed. But everything is gonna be fine. I prepared it, I tested it today. And finally, conclusion, outlook, and Q&A. I'm looking forward to your feedback. I already learned this is quite an interesting group of users you have here, with millions of records, with big orgs, complex orgs. I know that the Amsterdam Salesforce ecosystem is quite advanced. I know with Sergey, you have a very talented architect there in the group. I know him from the famous Amsterdam Benelux Architect Group. I'm curious about your feedback and your ideas, because this is something I want to be honest with you. We did it, I did it a lot, but this is not something which is widespread. So you also can tell me, no, this doesn't make any sense, or hey, have you thought about that? I'm super open there. I'm not sharing industry standards, and this is not something I tested with many different customers. This is something I and my team, my colleagues, we developed together for one end user. Maybe it's bullshit, maybe. But the story time, this is classic, and I want to share my story time. Don't focus too much on which buttons you can read. I just want to highlight the send flower bouquet button. This is a real screenshot of our org. This is what 10 people built in 4 years. We have been very proud. 4 years of related lists, 3 lists. This is a real user screenshot. 3 lists of buttons. Each of that button works. Each of that button at one point was requested, programmed, deployed, used, tested, trained, and used by users. Each of that related list was the same. Requested, deployed, implemented, maintained. I was working in a high volume outbound sales company. Our users have been there for, on average, because we have been growing so fast, for 3 months. You know what they say to us when they see this screen the first time? You're kidding me, aren't you? This can't be your, I mean, have you tried to train this? I was watching actually the training videos, because I found watching the training videos very helpful. For half of the buttons, the trainers just straight out told the people, ignore that button. Because they have like a week of training. What if you explain them what the send flower bouquet button does? You tell them, and now this is the real story. If a customer complains hard enough, you can click on that button and then it actually sends the customer a flower bouquet. Hey, it's a useful button, kind of. But how often does it happen? Is it worth training the users? So what did we do? We started asking our users, do you need that button? Are you still using that? Which one can we remove? And you know what we got as answers? Nope. All of them are necessary. All of them are important. Just yesterday, I used it. I can't sell without it. This is very important to me. Especially management, also team leads and above, they couldn't get rid of a single button. Why? Because they requested it at some point. And people have an inherent fear of losing something. So because you literally, you never know when you need the send flower bouquet button. It might be tomorrow. So we got stuck. We had no way of cleaning up that system. So we have been between the CEO who told us, why is the system so complicated? And between the users who told us everything is necessary. 12 months later, after our Lightning migration, we used the Lightning migration. This is what the same layout for the same user group in the same country now looks like. 2 buttons. Change opportunity status and new test process. That's it. We could get rid of all other buttons and all other related lists. How did we do it? We implemented feature adoption tracking. We didn't listen to our users anymore because the users lied to us. This is what we learned. Of course, the user tells me he just used the button send SMS yesterday. But once I had real data about who actually clicked that button, I saw that this user didn't click the button yesterday. They just lied to me. Lied in a strange sense. People often don't know that they are lying. You have a group, you have a team, and you ask the team, and the team lead is also in the room. Hey, do you use that button, send SMS? And everybody wants to be the good person. Because you got told at some point that you need to use that button. So you say, yes, I'm a good one. Nobody's brave enough to tell you the truth or does even remember. So before we did the Lightning migration, we had 2 golden rules. Only a clean org is a good org. And only a used feature is a good feature. And now I need your nodding. Who of you works in a clean org? There is none. We always complain. Every user group meeting, it's the same. We always all complain about this dirty org with lots of automation. Nobody's brave enough to remove that one field which was requested by the CEO. And we literally have no idea what our users are doing. We can watch them, which changes their behavior. I realized that once I watch our users, they change their behavior because they want to please me. They know I built that button and they want to be, yeah, of course I do that all the time. We can ask the team leads, they lie to us because they have no idea. The users lie to us. So what can we do? We build a tracking, a real hard data. The same thing Facebook does with you, the same thing Google does with you, the same thing Amazon does with you. They rely on data. And what can we track? We can, and this is the first one, I think, and I hope all of you do all the time anyway, fields filled, records created. Have you heard of field trip? You have that one, you have 30 fields on your lead layout as an example. How often is the industry field really filled? 10%, 30%, 100%. If it's filled, is it actually filled with different values, or do all users, because it's a mandatory field, just select the first value anyway? This exercise, look for, somebody draws on here, nice. This exercise, like check how the fields are filled and how many records are actually created from all these related lists I showed you. Do it every 3 months. No technology required there. Get your interns, your admins, even your project manager, and just do it. It becomes busy work. It's busy work, but I find it I like that work. I like to sit down and just check every single field on every page layout in the system. Is it still useful? If the fill rate is below, you can define the threshold. We defined the threshold of 30%. If it's below 30%, you kick it off the page layout immediately. And 2 months later, you delete the field altogether, if possible. The next one is custom buttons. How often are my buttons clicked? Then, and this is especially important since we have Lightning, we can build really intricate pages, and a lot of them, like the tabs within tabs and stuff like that. How often are my pages or even my tabs viewed? Let's say you put in a lot of effort into your contact page, but you actually don't know how often the contact page is viewed by which user. Is it worth to put in more effort? Is it worth to put in more effort into the news tab on the lead? The third one is flows. How often is a flow started? And we realized something. A started flow actually provides no business value. Only a finished flow provides business value. Every time we deployed a new flow, almost all the users in our system started the flow, but actually didn't finish. They just wanted to know what happens. So we had to monitor also how often the flow finished. And there, then we could identify which flows work and which flow don't provide any value. And lastly, specific user inputs. This is something I will talk about later. It's a very interesting topic, but hopefully it doesn't happen in your org. So first, how to implement, and this is the introduction. The problem is Salesforce has no feature adoption tracking out of the box. I find it actually very, you can use Salesforce Shield, which costs 10% of your licensing cost, to do some basic tracking, but it's not the same. It's more for auditing. So there's nothing, every website, you just implement Google Analytics and you know which user does what. This is not working for Salesforce. We have no idea. But a custom object with a few lines of code, don't be afraid. It's perfectly doable for admins and you can track almost everything everywhere in your org. And once you have it initially implemented, adding it to features is really, really fast. It only takes us seconds. So in the org company I was working at, we just had a rule for every new feature, for every new page layout, for every new tab, you just add the tracking automatically. It becomes a habit. So the architecture, this is the most complex I want to show. First, on the right side, we have an object. Adoption count is a custom object, has 4 fields: action, feature, count, and user. So I want to count which user does what, also action and feature combination, how often. I don't create one record per action, but I create one record per week per action and feature combination. So user Ankit opened the lead page 5 times last week. This is more than enough usually, but you can make it more granular if you need it by day. But I found week more than enough. Then we have a class. It's just a small helper class which does all the magic. It takes as inputs, it takes the feature and the action and the user, and then it does the calculation. And lastly, this is all the places where you can invoke that class, also start that action. From flows, process builder, Lightning components, Visualforce pages, and Apex. I'm a huge fan of invocable methods because this, for the developers, this helps to make admins do this. So all I will tell you about how to implement it in the live demo, admins can do it. And this already brings me to the live demo. The first, I'm a product manager by heart. So the first user story is, as a product owner, I want to know how often the tab news on the lead detail page is used. Simple question. None of you can answer it today. Not even Salesforce can answer it. Should we do it together? Easy. I add a super small helper Lightning component to the Lightning record page tab, news. I give it 2 design attributes, feature and action, and I create a report. That's it. Should take less than 3 minutes. Good. Let's less than 3 minutes, I promised. Good. First, we have here our Bertha Boxer. I draw you edit page. I love Lightning. I think most of you will have hopefully already forgotten Classic. Simple enough. I select the News tab. I search for my custom Lightning component, drag and drop it here, give it feature, News tab, and action. This way we did it always. News tab, viewed, and click save. Now I go back. And as soon as the user clicks on the News tab, it should, this is the report I already prepared. You see, Johann, this is me, viewed the News tab once today. That's it. I think it took less than 3 minutes. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't, because it doesn't add anything to the performance for the user. We talked about performance. It's a fire and forget call to the backend. So from a user point of view, it adds a few milliseconds on page load. That's it. Also, not even, yeah, couple of. I don't see any reason not to add it to any new tab, to any new page immediately. We found really, really interesting learnings there. We have been putting a lot of time into actually our contact record page. And we realized most of our users never visited the contact record page. They did almost everything from opportunity. So what we learned there is take the few missing information from contact, put them onto the opportunity page, and make it a real one-stop shop. And from there on, ignore the contact tab page or completely. Then this was the first example. Now I want to go to the next one. Database level action. This is a little bit tricky. Why should I ask that? As it is, user stories as an operations manager, I want to know who changes the opportunity owner for closed opportunities in order to stop cheating. Yeah, unfortunately, I saw that not only with this one customer, I saw that in many different Salesforce orgs, salespeople, some of them cheat sometimes. And one way of cheating is you just lost a customer, you change the opportunity owner to somebody else. Yeah, it improves your conversion rates and therefore improves your bonus. Or you do it the other way around. Somebody just closed in one, you just steal the opportunity and hope nobody notices. We saw that happen, or even worse, we had the theory. So how do we check if the theory actually is true? I create a process filter which fires every time the opportunity of a closed opportunity is changed. For an Apex, I make I call the Apex method increase adoption counter. Again, I define the input parameters and I create a report. You can follow me so far? Maybe, and again, I'm a question into the round. I will gallery you. Who of you also has the theory that some of your salespeople cheat? None? Then maybe Amsterdam. Ada, you don't know about it. They're too good in cheating.
I don't know if you can see Tanya's face, but there was some sort of no. She's now shaking her head.
No salespeople. I don't have salespeople. That's why I'm laughing.
Oh, okay. I don't have salespeople either. What does the chat say? The chat's everyone's keeping silence. There's a GDPR question. Maybe people are worried about being tracked back later. What they say. I'll let you get on with it. Cheers.
Thanks. Okay, then hey, maybe the Netherlands is different. I take it back.
On my previous job, the main reason for salespeople getting fired was them cheating, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So I will actually do it again in the next 3 minutes. Countdown. Good. Oh no, I didn't prepare my, I have to go into the setup. I forgot about this part. This is the only downside. I still fancy the classic setup more than the Lightning setup. It's just faster. But this is just personal. And I will miss the process builder once they, okay. So here I have my process opportunity handler called. I already defined the criteria. When the opportunity is closed equals true and the opportunity owner is changed. True. Then Apex, action type Apex. If you didn't know that, from Process Builder, you can actually call Apex. So this is a very nice way for developers and admins to work together. Adoption counter, I call it. Increase adoption counter. Action was owner changed on feature opportunity. And click save. And activate. And again, I do the demo. Never trust without testing yourself. I change the owner to myself. Again, go to our report. And I got it here. I think that was less than 3 minutes. So this completes our database level action, and you can get as complicated as you want. You can add it to flows, you can add it to triggers, whatever you want. And the last one is custom Lightning components. I mean, let's be honest, most expensive pieces of our orgs are usually the program stuff. You have to program it, test it, and so forth. And you never know if actually people like or use it. I mean, we had the example, we had a very complicated send SMS feature, which turned out to be mostly useless. And here I have an amazing button that's called send email. I want to know how often my people actually use that button. So what I do, I just add 2 lines of code. We will not focus on the code too much. To my Lightning component. So it's an adoption counter action invocation on a button click. I pass again the same attributes as before as inputs, and I create a report. I will just click send email, refresh here, and I clicked get the send email button click, and just I'm not lying. This is the code. So I have a small component. It's in Aura programmed, and on a button click, component find adoption tracker increase count. That's it. 2 lines of code. No excuse for any developer not to include that. Again, it's super lightweight from a performance point of view. And this already concludes my demo. So what do we actually do with the data? Now the fun part begins. And Paul already knows what's coming here. There is a disclaimer before we start. I do that because I like my org. If you want to get promoted, don't do it. You will not be the darling of the company because you do something people don't want to hear. People don't want to hear that their feature, especially management, which they thought will be amazing, doesn't work. And I was super proud last year. I programmed a voice controlled Salesforce, and then it turned out I added my feature adoption tracking. It was completely useless. It worked technically amazingly. Everybody gave me great feedback. I got praise from everybody. 2 out of 100 users have been using it. The mouse is still faster. You never know ahead of time which features are great. And before go live, you need to define the expected usage. And this is something business doesn't like to tell you. They say it's amazing. Yeah. How often do you think this button send email will be used? Yeah, a lot. I mean, what do you mean a lot? 10 times a day, 100 times a day by all users, by 50% of users. This is a very cumbersome discussion. Once they get used to it, it becomes easier. But maybe I put in Paul here as a reference. Paul is a product manager as well, product owner. Paul, what's your experience on these kind of questions?
Wasn't expecting that. Everyone says, well, I've taken all the lessons that I learned from you when I heard this last year. Everyone says that they need it, but the question is, how often do they use it? So I'm going to give you a prompt. I saw on the very first screen that you had a send flowers button. Can you talk us, perhaps mention about how often that was used?
It was used almost never, and at some point we realized that it actually was broken, the API, and nobody noticed. This is how seldom it was used, but the guy who came up with it was praised for it on our Christmas party because it looked amazing on a PowerPoint. So it's, yes, this is our life. So define expected usage. This is the hard part, but every ticket should have that part of it. And then once you are done, especially if you're a product owner, but also as an admin or project manager, set yourself a reminder in 3 months, or when we go live as a feature in 1 week, track the adoption. So what I usually do is I create a calendar entry. I already created the report anyway. I just copy paste the link to the report into the calendar entry in next week, then in 3 weeks, and then in 3 months. And then every time I send out, hey, thank you very much for requesting that feature. The current adoption is 50 times a week. Your expected usage was 200 times a week. So inform the stakeholders in a friendly and neutral way. A lesson I learned there. Don't only inform them about the negative things, also inform them when everything is great. For some time, I forgot the second part. Be positive as well. Share the positive news. And lastly, if based on the adoption, which is never the expected adoption, it might be way higher, it might be way slower. Decide on, do you need further training or communication? Do you need further development? Or lastly, do you need to remove that feature? From my experience, people always will ask you for, yeah, we have to inform people better, training and communication, or we need to improve the feature. From my personal experience, if a feature doesn't sell itself by either being amazing, no training and communication really gonna save the feature, and no further development really gonna save the feature. You're not gonna make a feature which is used by 2 people into a feature which is used by 300 people by making it from version 1 to version 2. This is something I would actually like to take into the panel afterwards. What's your thought on that? Do you think you can improve adoption of a feature by training and communication or further development? My theory is removal is the default answer. And make it quick and make it easy. Don't spend another week of development. And this is already the conclusion. Implementing Tracky is super easy. Please do it. Adoption tracking is part of the feature lifecycle, and it can keep your org clean. I know it's different for any external, if you're a partner, if you're a consultant, but if you're in-house and you own an org in some way, do yourself the favor, implement tracking. And this concludes my session. I'm looking forward to your Q&As and your questions.
So you don't have to wait for questions. There are a lot. Let me just start with that. Can you please confirm that you can hear me though?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So first question we had from Panos were about the GDPR. Are there any GDPR issues with processing this kind of user activity data?
Good point. No, because of their internal employees. And we but second one is it's super easy to anonymize. So you don't actually have to track which user does it, just give a user a random number, which you cannot put back into the connect back to the user. Because I don't actually care which user does it, but only I want to care that a user does it.
Okay. Perfect. Second question from Sergey. Did you share your framework with end user? If yes, what was the reaction and feedback?
No, don't do it. Because yes, the user tells me I use this all the time. I will not tell the user you lied to me. Also, yet they know kind of that we track them, kind of, but not in details and what exactly. Okay,
with the question about the tracking owner, when you did the report on how people change, Punit asked if Salesforce is not already tracking the owner other field change. You can track that in Salesforce differently also, right?
Yes, this was an example. What we had I did for the demo. You could actually use Salesforce field history, and then but you had to do some magic in Excel. It changes already the owner, but I don't care if the owner changes if the opportunity is not closed yet.
Okay.
So it's more complex. And actually in our example, it was even more complex. What if really the owner changes and there was already an invoice written?
Okay, then we have another question from Panos. So we have how dangerous is is the implementation for governor limits, and how can I convince my dev team architect to implement this in mine too?
Okay, I would love to see that. It has no impact on governance limits if you implement it using platform events, because then you have a separate set of limits and it's not part of the transaction.
That was very cool and short answer. And we have also, I think, last question.
I just have to add, just to get this authenticity thing, I'm sure that that made sense to some people, and if it didn't make sense, it doesn't matter.
No,
Whether you're dealing with that complex an org.
Yeah, this is very true. It does not matter, and if it's matter, it's easily handleable.
And if Panos, if you're not happy, you have more questions, please connect with Johann directly. And we have another question, last one from my list during the session. I don't see anything new. So it was, is idea voting prior to implementation may have similar effect? What is your view on this?
What do you mean? If you have internal ideas,
yeah,
people never vote for removing something.
Okay, so they will be always pushing for new stuff to get added.
Yes, they will also vote for a cleaner org.
Okay.
Also, I would also like to clean my wardrobe. They can never decide to put which T-shirt I should throw out. It's people, as we have as humans, we have an affection to losing something. Losing something hurts way more than getting something, not getting something.
Very true.
Okay, and really last questions. Will it only work for custom changes or also standard Salesforce functionality?
You can add it to almost all standard functionality. There's a few things you cannot track because it's not available via the API. For example, if somebody clicks the checkbox on automatically add default opportunity team members, it's not possible to track this one, but this is very far in between. This was a very specific example.
Okay, thank you so much. That was all the questions for now.
Nice.